Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. T Show. I am Dr. T, your host for this podcast. Thank you for joining me today, and I invite you to follow this show as I engage in conversations with people from all walks of life, but all with one thing in common. That common link, they all have a voice with purpose. My hope in bringing you Voices with Purpose is to offer hope and inspiration and perhaps help you launch your voice with purpose if you have not already done so. Be sure to check out my website, Dr. T Consulting, drtconsulting.org, for more information and valuable resources. Okay, I am both thrilled and honored to bring you today a very special Veterans episode paying tribute to God and country. This episode will have a 3 wartime Army vet representation, all who served during the Vietnam War era. My 2 guests both served in Vietnam, while the 3rd vet, myself, served in Europe. Our tours covered a period from 1968 to 1974. My 2 special guests also happened to be my older 2 brothers, Dave and Ted Torkildson. A special side note is that our dad also served during World War II. So we have a long line of Army service for this great United States. This special Veterans episode is intended to align with the many other celebrations and ceremonies recognized and honoring the United States of America on its 250th anniversary since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The intent of this show is not to go into great detail as far as wartime experiences, but rather to discuss how serving our country helps shape who we are as men, our perspective on faith, family, and freedom. And by doing so, we wish to bring honor to all service men and women, to our country, and of course, Creator God. All right, time to welcome my very special guests. Dave, Ted, welcome to the show. It's awesome to be creating this episode with the both of you as we pay tribute on this 250th anniversary to our great country. Dave, let's start with you. So you enlisted in the Army, 18, young man, as did your brothers. Share with the listeners anything you want about your experience, how it shaped your thought formation, personality, and patriotism. The table's yours.
Well, just graduating from high school the year before, in 67, I had a summer of fast cars and teenage partying. And draft was coming, and 68 came, and I just decided, well, my family's moving, and so there's no reason for me to stick around. So myself and a buddy went ahead and volunteered for the Army in lieu of being drafted. So hopefully we'd get a choice of our jobs. Of course, that didn't pan out.
Yeah.
It's not the way it works in the Army. But I did my basic training and went to artillery training and ended up in Vietnam with the 5th Infantry Division up on the DMZ. We were the northernmost unit. And I was in a 155 howitzer battery, self-propelled. And also the battery provided the recon teams for the infantry. So I spent my time out in the field as a radio operator with the recon team. When I got out, I was 20 years old, couldn't even legally drink when I got back from Vietnam. I had gotten married while I was in AIT. And, the military was an experience for me. It wasn't necessarily good because I developed some very negative attitudes about some of my leadership in authority figures and stuff, which I've had to deal with throughout my life.
Right.
But nonetheless, my belief in my brother veterans could never be stronger. I have a great disdain for those people that undermine our military and our veterans and our country, because even though I wasn't a big patriot, isn't why I went to Vietnam. It's just what we did. But I love this country, and the fact that people are trying to tear it apart and the things they're doing, it just makes me sick.
Yeah, that's powerful, Dave. I appreciate your brutal honesty. And, it's interesting because likewise, I went in at 18, Ted went in at 18, I got out at 20, wasn't legal for much. But I didn't go in a patriot. I went in naive also. I went in and you were partially responsible for that, or a great part responsible for that. One time we had a conversation, you were policing, and I realized I was going down a really bad path. You talked to me about that, and you said I should join the military, probably get drafted anyway. But I joined, and so I didn't go in a patriot, but I came out one. Likewise, I had issues with leadership. I think in all positions, whether it's government, military, private business sector, whatever, there's leadership challenges, leadership issues. And it wasn't necessarily about that so much that formed my patriotism as much as there was just this huge pride in being able to defend our country and be a part of something that made a difference because we know the history. We know that this country is what it is because of those that went before us and fought for our freedom. And I got to share in that experience. And likewise, my admiration for all vets, you two in particular, is off the radar. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Ted, you kind of heard Dave's thoughts on it and his experience in joining and what led up to it. How about you, brother? Where were you at? What were you thinking? And what transpired as you went through your time and tour?
Well, most of my patriotism came when just growing up in rural America, and everybody was pretty patriotic. In school, we did the pledge, we sang "God Bless America." Everything was like that. Well, then my senior year in high school, we had a family thing where mom and dad separated, and we moved, and I had to go to a new high school for my senior year. It was tough, and I didn't know what direction I was going to go. I went to trade school for a year, and then I was 18 and I went in. And likewise, like my brother, I was out at 20 and I couldn't even drink when I got out. Yeah. But I was fortunate because I had decent grades and so on, and they ran background checks on me, and I got in the Army Security Agency. I was a top secret MP for a top secret first rated research company, Cam Bay, Vietnam. Last to the first. I was part of that. And it was a great experience. I mean, the people were great. I needed to grow up. I needed to get in shape. And we had nothing as a kid. So my chance in life to try to get ahead. And that's what I did. I did a lot of saving and tried to learn. Well, then we got out and I was able to go to college on the GI Bill, which was a great thing. It's a great program. And I took advantage of that and got into a field, and I've changed fields ever since several times, but I've never forgotten the military or my love of this country because I've seen what other countries are all about. And I think I need to see things get better than what they are now. And I'm at a good place right now.
That's good to hear. I appreciate that. And we're going to talk about our concerns and what we see in this, not just national, but global attempt, I believe, to take down our country in terms of our traditions, the attack on our patriotism, the attack on our faith. But before we do, what would be a message you would give to fellow veterans out there? Because we do want to be a part of aligning with this wonderful celebration of America's 250th anniversary. It's awesome that we've been a free country this long and that we've lasted and that we still shine. Now, there's a huge attack on that, and we're going to talk about that. But in the meantime, in terms of your fellow vets out there and folks that are maybe questioning this whole patriotism thing, Dave, what would you say to them?
I guess the only message I'd probably have is let's just stay united as brothers and remember what we're here for. The impact that this attitude today has had on so many young people has been frightening. However, I'm encouraged with the fact that we've had recruitment in the military that has been phenomenal. People are now believing because we've got leadership that is behind our military instead of previously, which I won't go into either. We just have to hang in there, persevere,
I appreciate that. And you are right. The priorities are different with this administration. People can say what they want about personnel in the current administration, but we see more effort, time, deliberateness, intentionalism going into building the military, making it once again great, which it used to be, and something that could actually protect this country in time of need. So I think we all would agree that we really appreciate the efforts. And likewise to our vets, I'm so pleased that they're getting additional support. I mean, we saw veterans trying to get out. We saw the enlistments down because of what was going on previously. That it was not a proud place to be. So I would have to agree with that. Ted, your thoughts, message to vets or thoughts in regards to fellow veterans out there?
I think the responsibility is a lot to vets to talk to their kids, their grandkids, their friends when they see it, and just tell them how special this country is.
Yeah.
You just can't take it for granted. It's going to take people to keep it going. There's reasons countries have fallen apart in disarray. It's, for us, our Constitution is like a bedrock of this country and our religion. So talk to your kids and your grandkids. But if you need help, get help. There's lots of help now. It's amazing. The VA healthcare system for veterans with crisis, there's lines you can call. There's things there now to help vets. For many years, it was neglected big time. So I just encourage them. We're the ones that are going to have to put forth the attitude. We can't leave it up to people that haven't been there, that don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So shifting a little bit to today's political and cultural environment, it's not the same one we grew up in. It's not the same one we joined the military for. We see, and I know you struggled with finding the right term, because no, we don't want to attack people, but I will speak out against extreme ideologies, things that are anti-American, anti-God, anti-family, because they can do nothing but lead to destruction. And we're seeing ideology movements, power and money behind that. And it's coming against, the family. It's coming against the church. It's coming against government. It's also coming against our military. I think these ideologies would that we didn't have a military, that we just sing kumbaya, which isn't realistic with the rest of the planet. And that we know never will happen because there's predators out there. What are your thoughts on this cultural political shift that we're seeing? And even though we now have what we call a reprieve with the current administration that's supporting, there's huge dark money. There's huge behind the scenes workings to shift this ideology and to basically dismantle our history and our culture. What are your thoughts on that, David?
It's a total all-out war against our country. The misinformation that is being disseminated constantly, every day, to everyone is misleading so many people, and it's a big disguise for the corruption and the politicians that are corrupt and crooked. Guess what I was going to say earlier is, I even had seen this with friends and family where they've gotten so overwhelmed with, and I'm going to call it the TDS, anything that they can do to demean our president, whether he's 100% right or just a little bit right, they'll do it. And I look at that and I don't understand how it can be so overwhelming that these people can't see, like how blind they are. And then I'll hit the Bible for a second. Jesus said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." And that's the only thing I can keep telling myself, is that they don't understand how wrong they are.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. Yeah, and I can feel your pain, if you will, because it is very disturbing what is taking place. Ted, what are your thoughts on that? Any comment on what your brother had to say?
Well, likewise, there's no doubt in my mind that the world don't like us being where we're at in this country. It's total jealousy. They've destroyed their countries and they want to destroy our country so that certain people can rule the world, is what it amounts to. But I think that these politicians that are not telling the truth, the media that's most corrupt legacy media I've ever seen. I used to follow and believe in people. Now I listen to them and I don't even know what they're talking about. They don't even quote history correctly anymore. They change history. They change the rules. They change the language. I would have never said the things that people are saying about our president. I wouldn't have said it about Obama, Biden. I would never stoop myself that low to do that. But they have no problem doing it. I don't know where they're coming from if evil is that strong in people. So.
Well, we know, and from a psychological standpoint, hate is very powerful, and it can become like a disease. It's a toxin. And I appreciate your point, because there isn't much, if anything, I agreed with the previous administration. But I would never hate the person. And I would never attack the person physically, certainly not, and not even verbally. I would attack policies or agendas in that I would not agree and I would point out why I think they're wrong. But I wouldn't let my spirit or my soul move into a place of hatred. And that's the difference, I think, what we're seeing today. But the reason I bring that up or reinforce that with you is because I think that, because we want to talk a little bit about what's maybe causing this. I think something is happening in the spirit world because logic doesn't hate. It takes something else to hate. And that's a sickening or it's a worsening within the soul. And so something spiritual is happening. It isn't just by chance. And so that's why, like I've written a book, as you all know, called Awaken, Exposing the Web of Deception, that is Faith, Family, and Freedom. Actually, it's right there. And I talk about it being a spiritual battle. But you know what? That's the only thing that can explain it. Because think about it for a minute as logical individuals. If Trump does something that's good for this country, let's take keeping men out of women's sports. They will not agree with that. And it doesn't matter. I mean, Jesus himself could say, all right, let's not have men in a boxing match with a woman or a biological male. And if it was Trump, they wouldn't even agree with it. It was Jesus if Jesus was on the Trump administration.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's why I'm saying it's become toxic and it's become something beyond logic. It's the only thing I think that can explain it, because if Biden was to expose or the previous administration was to promote something that was healthy for families, let's say extended maternal leave, I would say, great. I'm happy to see our president do something that's good for families. That can't happen today in this climate. No matter what this man does, it's going to be hated, whether it's good for families, country, or freedom or not. It's going to be hated. So that isn't logical. So there's something deeper going on. That's where I say it's spiritual.
If I can just interject,
Yes.
how strongly I agree with that. You just look at the dynamics of the riots and the protests, and the ones that are doing it have lost all sense of a culture that we grew up with of respect and caring about your neighbor and so forth. And yet, and I'll just use the term, the Republicans, they do not respond that way. They still have got some logic in their conduct and their behavior. We'll try to argue policy and try to correct things. But we are not persuaded by, I'm saying, the demonization that has occurred to these people. And they must not know how badly they've been demonized.
Yeah. Ted, your take on any of this?
Well, likewise, I get disappointed in the Republicans because they need to battle similarly that their opponents are battling. They need to take it to them hard. Now, not swearing and not going against their family members. That's something that totally blows me away, that people, they'll go after a politician, but they'll go after their kids and their grandkids and their neighbors and anybody that is a friend of theirs. It just makes no sense. It's totally evil. That's my favorite word, because that's what they are. And I don't know if our media is going to come around. I think there must be so much money involved that everybody's bought off. You know, they're not going to, and they're evidently half the audience agrees and the other half doesn't. But I can't believe it's that bad. But it evidently is. They need to learn to battle. They got to look ahead and say, what would they do in our situation? If they would do that, well, then you need to start thinking about doing that.
Yeah. You know, I think one of the best points made in this conversation is that of reason and logic, and that rational people, healthy people, if you will, can sit down and have a conversation, even with people that might strongly disagree with what they have to say. And I think that's another indication of an illness or sickness when you can't do that. I may not agree with the thing that they stand for, but I'm not going to hate them. And I'm certainly not going to take violent action towards them. Okay. If I did, that says less about them and more about something that's going on wrong inside of me. And that's unfortunately what we're seeing rampant in this country today, is an acting out of violence and hatred. That in and of itself should prove that that approach is wrong, that their voice is wrong. It's unhealthy. It's destructive. There's no good in it. And so it's turned into something a lot bigger. And that's why, again, I come back to, and I talk about it in my book, that we are involved in the midst of a spiritual war.
Yeah, the spirit is not allowing people to see what's in front of them. The evil has just blinded them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can listen to somebody that has an opposite opinion, and that's fine. I'll listen. And then I want to give my opinion, and I can even state the facts, and they'll walk away. They won't even listen. They just storm away and say, well, that's whoever you listen. No, that's the facts. Look it up. But facts don't matter anymore.
You know, one of the basic premises, Ted, of this country, one of the key weaves of our Constitution is freedom of speech and respecting people's right to do it. And so, again, even though I don't agree with the extreme ideologies, I think it's destructive and it's leading a lot of people down a broad path of destruction. You know, I believe that to be true. I'm going to still not hate the people. I believe there's a lot of good people being caught up in what I call this web of deception. And I'm going to try to pray them out of it, pray them through it, love them out of it. But that's a demonstration of us representing our Constitution, is being accepting of other people, even though we disagree. But we see no acceptance of those that are supporting the current administration. Zero tolerance, zero acceptance.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I almost feel as though we're going to need an act of God just to wake people up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm at that point too, because we can try everything that makes sense, but it doesn't. They don't hear it. They don't see it.
Yeah.
But if there was a catastrophe, they'd blame it on Trump.
Yeah.
No matter what it is. I don't know. But I still believe in my country, and I still believe that our kids and grandkids growing up, at least my kids and my grandkids, and a lot of them that I know, they're going to help build this country. They're not here to destroy the country, but there's too many of them that want to destroy it as it is. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's scary because you see this attempt out there. I mean, we think about Malcolm X back in the 60s and some of the things he had to say. And just to summarize in a sentence what he had to say, he didn't quote it this way, but it was basically what he was saying. You control the narrative, you control the people, right? And so, as you mentioned earlier, we're seeing that narrative takeover. But we're also seeing the next step now. They're attempting to eliminate history. They want to remove it from public forum. They want to rewrite it. Rewrite history books, take out certain things, how this country was founded and how we've maintained our freedom this long. Their desire is to weave themselves into even the education of our children.
I got a lot of my old history books. You can look in there and you compare it with a new one. There's half the stuff isn't even in there, especially if it glorifies our founding.
And it's, it's a fact. If you look at the premises of communism, socialism, like you said, control the narrative, control the people. That goes along with everything else. If you control the media, it follows. I mean, you could look at it and everything is going right down the line to turn us into some regressive communist country.
Yeah, and they don't make any bones about it. And I say they, it's that progressive movement. They don't make any bones about it anymore. They don't even apologize for the socialist movement. We look at some mayors and elsewhere, we see it. And that's what's scary. It's becoming public, mainframe, and people are accepting it and supporting it and voting it in. I mean, we are setting ourselves up for self-destruction. And the problem with a socialist movement or government, you don't realize it till it's too late. And the sad part is most of those people in those countries where they voted in these dictatorships and these socialist communist leaders are all regret it. And then they end up silencing the people and taking over with power.
It comes down to following laws. We got laws that both parties put in, and we will not follow the law. We let people get away with stuff, and pretty soon that mushrooms into something else and something worse. But I mean, it's just like immigration laws. They were founded, immigration's great, but people are supposed to assimilate into Americans. They need to learn English. We can't adjust our whole system for them. No, they got to adjust us, or if not, don't come here. That's what it is. If you go to another country, go to Russia, you think they're going to let you bring capitalist ideas there and freedom of speech? No way. So why do we do that? Let's follow the law. If people are breaking laws, just like these protests, my goodness, they should be locking them all up, build some more prisons, and have minimum sentences for them, and then it'll stop.
So that brings me to an interesting question. What do you think our forefathers, our founders of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, those that set this country up with intended checks and balances, they had one thought in mind, I'm sure. They thought that our government leadership and those involved in government, those sworn into offices, would follow the law. What do you think they would say now? I mean, we have laws being ignored. It's a pick and choose which ones you want to follow. Somebody can be arrested, like a grandma that prayed in front of an abortion clinic and spent time in prison, but somebody else at an anti-Semitic rally can damage and destroy a car and even harm an individual and not even get a slap on the hand. Things are being ignored, and it's a selection of enforcement, if you will, by many in leadership positions. What do you think our forefathers would have to say about what's playing out?
Well, I think they're all rolling over in their graves. I mean, for Pete's sake, when you look at the judicial system where everything that Trump does, they find some way to block it. And everything's got to go to the Supreme Court. And it's not supposed to be that way. No, it was never intended that you'd have some federal judge that could rule over this whole country.
Yeah, it's just like the January 6th. Those people got thrown in jail. They didn't have their day in court. I didn't see them breaking things and destroying things. Sure, they're patriotic, but I see people letting them in. I see people.
That was all, that was
in.
a setup. There was no doubt that was a whole setup with one intention, and that was to stop the reevaluation of that election, because the timing was perfect. The minute the senator and representative that brought it to the floor that they wanted things checked, the moment that happened is when all H broke loose, because it was a perfect insurrection to stop us from doing the right thing. I mean, that was planned by the Democrats, and it was executed by the Democrats, and that was Americans that paid the penalty for it.
Yeah, now you have insurrections and nothing happens. I mean, you got property damage, you got major threats. You can't allow that. If you allow it, it's going to get worse. I mean, common sense tells you if you're going to allow something to happen and you don't do anything about it, it's going to get worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another problem I have is the Republicans, they argue with each other and they'll have different opinions. The Democrats are exactly the same, on the same track every time, no matter what it is. But you can't even get the Republicans to rally together for instance, the SAVE Act. I mean, we should have that. I don't want my vote subtracted by somebody that shouldn't vote.
Right.
Period. We earned our vote.
That's the corruption in politics. It's even affected what we would say is our side, the conservative side.
Yeah. So we're facing in this country extreme battles and challenges in upholding our Constitution. We see a selectivism taking place. And some of that comes about, I think, because we no longer adhere to the Word of God. And so we're more relying on situational ethics. Okay. So we justify things. Take illegal immigration. Well, this person, has a family. This person needs to be here because of this. This person, they either broke the law or they didn't, right? Well, when we start to move the dial and say, okay, we'll look at this situation and allow it, that's a slippery slope. It doesn't stop. Now I'm going to look at this situation. So judges are looking at situations and saying, well, he's a good person, I'm not going to enforce it. Or there's a reason they did that. And that reason is because they're just making a point or they oppose this. I heard a term recently called social murder. They're even now starting to move it in justifying this guy that killed the CEO from the large health group, calling it social murder. In other words, there might be social explanations as to why somebody does this. And so that then is going to imply that you should reevaluate how you hold that person accountable, right? This is all situational ethics based on man-made kinds of principles, thinking he knows more than God. And the bottom line is the Constitution, the laws of the land should not be up for evaluation in terms of what selectivism, what do I hold, what do I not follow, what do I enforce, what do I not enforce. If we don't like the law, we change the law. If we don't like the speeding limit, then we can try to get a law changed for the speeding limit. But you can't just break the law and expect to get off with it because then you put it in the hands of a legal system that selects which ones they want to enforce and which ones they don't. And then when you have an extreme ideology running or operating the large systems, what's going to happen? Selectivism will set in, and they will allow what they want, disregard the law, and only do that thing or force that thing that supports their agenda.
No, that's absolutely true. And that is exactly what's happening. And, one of the issues there is going to be, how does the role of Islam fit in this country? And, there's been evidence in Great Britain, for example, about how bad it's gotten. The people are up in arms. Is it going to take that kind of a revolution? Or can we put an end to some of this stuff before it gets that bad?
Right.
And there's where your selectivism comes in. You get a judge that says, oh, they can do this, they can do that, even though this country is founded upon people assimilating, becoming part of this country, not trying to build their own country within our country.
Yeah, they got this separation of church and state, but when it comes to Islam, there's no separation. They can do things in school. They can have their prayer sessions at places, without a permit. They can do all this. But well, if you're a Christian, you got to follow the law or they'll put you down.
Your question was, what can be done? What do we think will happen? And I truly believe that if Trump is permitted to execute his efforts, we can start to bring about a recovery. But it's an uphill battle. I think he's got God on his side. I truly believe in that. And people will call us a bunch of Bible-thumping hypocrites for saying that. But when the turn of a head saved a man's life who was trying to save this country, that doesn't just happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ted, any thoughts on that? What do we need to do?
Well, it starts with education. We can't separate Judeo-Christian values from schools. I mean, they used to have the 10 Commandments in my rooms. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the 10 Commandments. It's logical things that people should not do and should try to do it the best. Respect their neighbors, respect people's property. But we got to start with education. These colleges, if they're going to have radicals running classrooms in colleges, then they need to abide by the law. If they're revving people up for disorder, for conflict, for revolution, well, then they got to go. We got to enforce things. It's not freedom of speech when you're trying to destroy our country, period.
Do you guys think your voices are unique or much different than other veterans?
Well, we all know there are some veterans that, and without using names, that have gone against the very principles that we talked about. But I think there's an innate belief amongst most veterans that this country is number one and we need to save it above all else. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I would agree, Dave. And I think that's a good lead in to kind of where we want to look at concluding, because we've had some heavy, hard conversation. And I think it's conversation that has to be had. But at the same time, it's nice to land in a softer place. And I think that's a good lead in to really looking at the good of this country. We don't want to lose that. And this country is at risk. We're seeing freedoms lost. We're seeing selectivism take place. We're seeing a dark power take over. And we're seeing a conservative voice and faith being silenced or attempted to be silenced at every turn. And it is highly concerning. You and I, all of us are part of the solution. Veterans out there are. People need to stand up. People need to wake up. And people need to say enough's enough. I think part of the problem is that too many good people have been too permissive for too long in the name of decency, in the name of being non-judgmental, in the name of not wanting to be looked at as being prejudiced or anything else. We've allowed this stuff to come in, which is anti-American, anti-family, and anti-God. And the day is here where we have to not become violent, but be more outspoken and find what each of us can do to help save this country, protect this country, and wrap our hopes and our hearts around our traditions, our cultures, and our faith, which made this country.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. So veterans out there, we got your back. I appreciate and respect so much, not only you two as brothers, but for your service. And I appreciate you being on the show today. This has been a difficult conversation. I know some of it is going to be challenging for people to hear. I just pray and hope that they listen to the heart, listen to the intent, and realize no one's attacking anyone. Although we are in alignment against a very extreme ideology that is coming against our country, against our faith, against our freedom, and is trying to infiltrate everywhere that we turn, particularly in government, because government is where the most power is, right?
All veterans need to vote their heart, but look at the issues. We need everybody to vote. If you're just sitting by, somebody will neutralize your vote.
Yeah.
And my compliments to you, brother, on your mission. You know, here you are at your age deciding that you're going to do your part to try to awaken this world, at least awaken our country to the evils that are trying to take it away from us.
Well, I appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much. Yeah, it hurts. When I wrote my book, Awaken, it was 3 a.m, steered by our living Father, just saying, get up and write, because this stuff was in me, and I let it all out. And I talk about these ideologies that we're facing. Those are those things, those extremists out there that are trying to change this country. Start their own country. If they want to have extreme ideology, policies, implementations, and all these things, buy an island, start their own country. See how long it survives.
But to give you an example of how difficult your mission is, and the task ahead is there are those that are loved ones of yours and mine that won't even read your book because they're that programmed against any truth that they won't open their eyes, and it's so sad.
And David, to demonstrate that spiritual concept I was talking about, I'm okay with that. They don't have to read it. I'm not mad at them. I still love them. I'll do what I can to help them on a moment's whim. They need something, let me know. That's the difference. We're not going to let that that's America. They can disagree with that 100%. That's okay. I still love them.
It demonstrates their blindness is the point I'm making.
Yeah.
They won't even listen to alternatives.
Yeah. And I think that's an indication of what's a faulty ideology that's been adopted, because those are the fruit of their spirit is hate and anger. Okay. The fruit of our spirit is forgiveness and kindness. Don't agree, but I'm not going to be angry. So they've consumed something that's having that type of fruit. That in and of itself should say it's not a healthy intake.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to say that I am not somewhat angered, but I am certainly hurt by those things in our family.
I'm very disappointed, Dave. I'm not even hurt anymore because, I understand the spiritual deception. I don't fault them. I pray for them. I hurt for them. I'm concerned for their spirit, for their soul. There's a blindness. And that's why, again, in my book, I call it a web of deception. And it's toxic, and it disallows someone to be able to see the forest from the trees, if you will.
Yeah.
Our heritage, our great grandpa, didn't he help found the Democratic Farmer Labor Party in Minnesota?
Well, Democrats.
And I was a Democrat. I voted for Hubert Humphrey. I voted for Carter. They're not Democrats anymore.
No, they're not. It's a socialist party. It's no longer the Democrat Party.
That's true.
So we have a Republican Party and a Socialist Party. That's it. And actually the Democrat Party is a little concerned because on one hand, they support the progressive, but on the same time, they know how outlandish it is. And their only concern isn't because they don't agree. It's because they don't want to lose office. They don't want to lose votes. And they're afraid some of these extremisms may cost them a position. Power, yes.
And that's why they don't want voting to have any integrity.
Yeah.
Because they're losing Democrats that love this country, and they replace them with illegals or illegal ballots. And that's not right, because they don't want to lose power.
Right.
Period. I mean, they count the illegals in the census to give them their congressional seats.
Yeah.
So,
how anyone could not see the opening our border to millions to walk into our country. How they can't see how they can't see that was not good for us just is mind-boggling.
Yeah. The thousands of innocent people that have been hurt, but they'll talk about one or two that are trying to obstruct. Say ICE. Well, yeah, that's terrible, but they're obstructing. You're obstructing law officers. But, boy, you can have these people come and just rape and torture and murder and steal and Well, never even talk about that.
Brothers, awesome conversation, tough conversation. And again, thank you so much for being a part of this. I, along with you, we want to officially and formally offer our recognition for this great country, our support to our fellow vets, and our support to our leadership in the administration. We honor this 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and we are privileged to be a part of this great American nation. And I say, God bless America. God bless you. God bless our great country.
Hear, hear.
I'm very pleased with our military now because we've actually come back around full circle, and I can see a lot of bright horizons and a lot of good, and this is what we needed.
Awesome. All right, brothers. Dave, Ted, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it so much. I also want to thank our listeners for joining us today on the Dr. T Show for this special Veterans episode, Tribute to God and Country, and hope that you will follow weekly as I bring you Voices with Purpose. Please visit my website, drtconsulting.org, where you will find valuable resources and information on services and also how to order my book, Awaken, Exposing the Web of Deception, Threatening Our Faith, Family, and Freedom. There's also available a free ebook called Peace Pace, ready for you to download. So until next time, may God bless you, and may He be a light unto your path, and may He help you discover and activate your voice with purpose. And God bless America. Dr. T out.